Welcome to Word 2010 Paragraph Options. I'm Trainer Lori. What are paragraph options? It's one location to change your paragraph. These are one of those things that people ask me all the time. What happened? Especially when you've inherited a sheet from someone else and it's got formatting in it you don't know about, you can't see. Where do you find all those formattings? And this is how you can change it. Right on your toolbar, your home toolbar, there is a area called Paragraph, and in this area we're going to go through all the tools available. The first one is bullets, numbering, and outlining, and this is where you can change that, and I'll show you another place where you can have a little more options over that. The indent, you can do the indent right from your ribbon or from the ruler. Now if you're going to use the ruler, you need to make sure that the ruler shows, so you would have to go to view ruler to make sure that it's actually showing, but you can choose how far to make the indent using this top icon, this top button up here, and these indent buttons make it go to the right or to the left. You can also change the indent for the rest of the paragraph as well by moving the bottom buttons. You can sort, and you can sort by not only columns, but you can also, if your data is separated by commas, like a comma-separated value, you can sort by that as well. You can show paragraph marks. It could be useful, especially to show section breaks and page breaks. Justification, and you probably have used that one. That's probably one of the tools you use all the time. Line spacing, this is a biggie right here. Not only is there some built in just by clicking on the button, on the right side of the button, but you'll also have this line spacing options, which takes you into the paragraph dialog box. We're also going to see that by clicking the dialog box button, and so we'll come back to that in just a minute. Fill allows you to actually put color in your paragraph, just like you might in Excel, so you can make it more colorful. And borders, this is one that a lot of people ask me about. For example, I want a line above and below my headline, and you can use borders to do that. And then I've had people say, where are the lines? I can't see them to delete them, because they think that they're drawn lines, and they're not. They're the borders, and so this is a good place to change that if you don't want it. Well, let's go into the dialog box and see more. Indents and Spacings tab. On there is the alignment. We saw that earlier, and so we have all of our options for left alignment, center alignment, right alignment, or full, and full or justified. And you can see this does put spaces in between the text. That's why I don't generally use it. A lot of people like it because they think it looks pretty, but I think it's hard to read, so I prefer not to use it. I prefer the left aligned. You can change your outline level. Remember, we saw our bullet point options, and this is where you could change your outline levels. Indentation, we saw that with the tool, but now you can actually, instead of using the button to click and drag on the ruler, you can actually put in numbers, and sometimes you have a little more control that way. Mirror indents means, for example, on this document I want the gutter, that's the area between the two pages, two facing pages, I want that to be the same distance, and that's what a mirror indent is. Special, there's two kinds. There's first line, and then there's hanging. First line means that it indents only the first line, but I like this for the hanging. Hanging means the first line is not indented and everything else is. So that it's nice if you want to show off the first word almost as if it were a headline without making it bigger like a headline. Spacing, now this is the biggie. This is the one that people always ask me, what's wrong? How come I have single spacing some places and then there's these other spaces that I didn't put in? Well, that's because in some of your document, possibly formatted by someone else, they have spacing before or after in there. And so if I inherit a document from someone else, the first thing I do is do Control-A to highlight everything, and then I turn off all the spacing and I determine what I want it to be. So that's a good tip, to always create it first and then format it. On line spacing, by default it will be single, or you can make it 1.5 or double, but if you're going to change it, it usually goes up to at least. Now, for example, this headline is at least 48 points, and the font itself is 48 points, but look at all the space in between. And that's because Word wants to put in some extra leading or line spacing for you to make it what they think is easier to read. But sometimes I don't want that much. So instead of having at least, I'm going to change that to exactly. When I say exactly 48, then you can see the top of the letters is now different. I left those lines right where they were before, and you can see that now it's higher and it takes up less white space. So this is a nice option if you don't want the white space in your headline. You want to be able to save it for some other location. You can also set this as a default. So if you've come in here and made all the changes that you want, then you can choose if I want this as a default for this document only, or every document based on your normal ... template. And I'll tell you what, that's a big commitment. That's bigger than marriage, right? So if you don't want that formatting on every single document, but you do want it available to you so you can use it over and over again, then save it as a style. If you save it as a style, you'll find that on your Home tab, and you just click the styles, and when you see the drop down, you have the option to save the selection as a new quick style. Or you can apply a style. So you can use one that's already in there, or create a new one. So you can create a new one from what you have. And then you can modify it. You have other options to modify it. So either create it and then say make this a new style, or you can come in here and say, well, I want my font to be a certain size, and I want a certain color, and I want it to be a certain justification, etc. Tabs you can come in here for, but most of the time I just use tabs right here on the ruler. And you may or may not have noticed this before, but over here this looks like just a little box, but actually it is a tab control. And when you click it, it actually changes. In fact, it changes from left to center to right, decimal, and bar. So what does that mean? That means left means everything will be justified on the left side. Center means it will be justified within the paragraph. It doesn't have to be in a table, but right within the paragraph to the center. And this is a decimal. That means all the decimals will line up. So if I have a bunch of numbers on the left or on the right, it doesn't matter. You know how they would normally be kind of jaggedy, but here they'll all line up. So that's a decimal tab. And a bar tab isn't really used much anymore now that we have tables, but it was there so that you could create tables. Because all I have to do is change the type of tab up here and then click in the ruler, then I can create the kind of tab that I want. I don't usually use the tabs dialog box for that. What I come in here for is for the leader. Now the leader is really cool. For example, let's say that I wrote the name of the book, and when I hit tab, I want it to go all the way to the left side so that the right side, so that the whole right side is justified. And as I start typing, it actually moves this way with a ... leader. That's what this one does. I can also have a straight line leader. Now the nice thing about that is if you want to create forms and you want all your form entry locations to be in the exact same place. No matter how many words or letters are here, it will always line up here. So this is how we would do that. Now we're looking at line and page breaks tab, and in here is pagination. First thing is widow and orphan control. Doesn't that sound funny? So what is widow and orphan control? That is when you have a single line at the top or at the bottom of a page out of a paragraph. So instead of having that happen, you have some other options. You can keep it with the next, keep lines together. You can see down here that instead of starting it and then having it break, this next section all went together. And so that is when we use the widow and orphan control, and in this case, keep with next. We also have some formatting exceptions. Now these are things that you would create elsewhere. For example, under page layout, you could add line numbers. And that's handy if you're going to share a document with multiple people and make changes to it. So you can just say, well, on line 7, we want to make a change. And also, under page layout, we have hyphenation. So you can turn on the automatic, but you may have a paragraph that you don't want it to hyphenate. And so you can suppress line numbers or suppress the hyphenation for just that paragraph. And then finally, the last option is Textbox Options. And with Textbox, again, I have to create the text box first by going to Insert Text Box. That's one way to do it. And then see the text box here has text wrapped around it. Well, first I'd have to wrap the text. So to do that, I would right-click on it and choose Wrap Text. And if I choose one of these, then I can choose how that text is going to wrap. I can just have the first and last lines wrap or none wrap for that one paragraph. So again, you can have selections within the paragraph. Again, with your formatting, I would highly recommend that you create it first, build your document first, and then go back and format after. Thank you. See you next time.